Come and enjoy a straightforward, humorous, and enlightened hour on quantum physics to metaphysics on the show that wants you to ask questions. It's time for Ask Patti, live with your host, Patti Conklin.
Hi, folks. This is Patti Conklin with Ask Patti Live. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and my co-host tonight is another favorite friend of mine, Terri Pollack. Hi, Terri.
Hi, Patti. Hi, everybody.
Hi. We've given Fernessa the evening off, and so Terri has so graciously accepted to come on board tonight, and I have to tell all of you out there who are listening, who kind of follow, because Fernessa, I think we've talked about, is a bass guitarist, and Gary, who's our producer, is also quite a music guy. And Terri also is a phenomenal musician, and she plays a wide range of instruments. What's your favorite?
Probably my favorite to play is guitar. But the sound I love is of a classical grand piano.
Yes. I hear that. That's wonderful. So when Terri and Fernessa and the band get together, it's a fun time, but she has multi-talent, and she is a wonderful nutritionist. And I think you've got some other titles in there. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I guess if you could apply the adjective Renaissance woman to anybody, I might be one of those people, and probably that's maybe to a fault, because I tend to like so many different subjects that it's I guess you could say I would be a Jill of all trades. And I try to become a master of a couple. I say maybe by the time I'm 90 years old, I'll know nutrition really well.
There you go.
But nutritionist and music, I love that title, because I think that of all the subject matter, of all the intellectual pursuits, nutrition and biochemistry has always been my favorite.
Yeah.
You know?
When did you get started? Really, you've got a master's degree.
I do. I have
Correct?
a master's
in what?
Yeah, a master's of science in clinical nutrition, and I got that back in 1983. So don't do the math.
Yeah.
And I have been at it pretty much full tilt boogie ever since. I have done different things with that degree. Once I got that degree, I actually, my first 3 years, I was curator of education at the North Carolina Aquarium.
Oh,
because
wow.
I love aquariums, and I had studied a lot of marine biology. My undergraduate was in biology at NC State University. And then after 3 years there, I went to Texas and did a National Institutes of Health grant at the University of Texas Medical Branch for 3 years, which was just, high-end research and not a lot of applicability to it. And by that time, I was really ready to talk to people about it and really see good, high-level biochemical research applied to patient care.
Right.
And so when I came to Atlanta, I kind of futzed around a bit, not really finding what I wanted. I had worked with the Centers for Disease Control on a research project from Galveston, had helped them develop a method that I was working with using chromatography. So it's just, it's just boring science to most people. But then once I got here, I just happened to fall into a group of people who had some work done at a laboratory in Norcross called Metametrics Clinical Laboratory.
Right,
and
which Fernessa talks about all the time. She loves you guys.
I got Fernessa a gig, a really sweet gig at Metametrics Laboratory, because I know and love and trust Fernessa from so many angles and from the medical aspects so thoroughly that now she is our doctor on record at the Metametrics Clinical Lab. So it's great that we can work together in that capacity. So I've been there. I was there for 10 years and then did my thing for 6 years as a consultant doing Orlando Magic and Origins and all kinds of restaurant work, doing their nutritional content labeling.
Right.
And private and stuff. And then just 2 years ago, I started back with Metametrics in a capacity that is exactly what I wanted to do, and that's really educating doctors and doing lots of speaking.
Right.
So I love that a lot.
Right.
It's great.
Well, you're always so comfortable in front of the microphone. You know,
it's like I my first time in front of the microphone, I was 3 years old singing in church. So.
And I know you as a singer and musician, so yeah, it's an easy flow for you.
It is.
But you know, you and I have known each other, golly, for maybe 12 years now, 10, 12 years, and you know, you have just got such wonderful input on nutrition and just a wide range of topics. And I want to kind of, you know, continue on a little bit with the topic that Vanessa and I have been discussing the last couple of weeks and kind of come from a nutrition angle, but really adding in a lot of different aspects of disease and prevention and just, you know, all of that stuff. So I'm just going to start asking some questions. And for those of you out there listening, if you have questions for Terri or questions for me, feel free to give us a call. And the call-in number is 877-230-3062. And we're really going to be looking at it, any phone calls from both angles of nutrition and intuition, which, you know, everybody's got intuition. And Terri, you have become really good in using your intuition and trusting it.
Yeah,
so
I'm better and better.
You're getting much better. Vanessa's getting much better. So, yeah, everybody's good with that. But the last couple of weeks, Vanessa and I had been discussing chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, Epstein Bar. And I know that they're not items that you typically see with Metametrics. But I know you well enough to know that you probably have some input in on various things, because when we're looking at fatigue in the body and pain in the body, which a lot of these symptoms give, muscular pains and a lot of fatigue, what's kind of the overview nutritionally? I know Vanessa really loves to push the, what does she call it, the elimination diet of getting rid of everything and then slowly starting to put things back into the diet.
Right.
But what do you think for fatigue, muscle ache, somebody who's just really in the throes of not feeling well?
Mm-hmm. And that's
what do you think?
A common thing. I think for when anyone who's got fatigue as a problem, pretty much day in, day out, if they're not sleeping well, that's one of the things you want to look at first. But if they're sleeping okay, and you can assume maybe they don't have any serious neurotransmitter issues, which with nutrition, unfortunately, everything is related.
Yeah.
And I know really in our world of awareness, isn't that right, Patti? Everything is related.
Absolutely.
And we have to quit thinking of things as being separate from each other. But
exactly.
For fatigue, it could be an immune system issue, and the immune system has got to have good nutrition to function well.
Okay, so give me a specific, because I'm gonna take you back to when I was in Fort Lauderdale and I couldn't make a show, and so you and Vanessa were able to do it, and I was kind of back and forth with clients. Mm-hmm. And I listened to some of it, and you guys were confusing me. Yeah, guys were just confusing me with all of your languaging. So I'm gonna bring you back a little bit and say, what is a nutritional food? And maybe you can't answer this, I don't know, but what's a nutritional food that would really help the immune system? What types of foods? Is there any one type of thing? Do you need to do a detox first and then move into immune system?
I think that what we have issues with are two main things with food. Uh-huh. One is we eat too much.
Yep.
And the number two thing is we don't eat pure, whole, natural food.
Okay.
And I think the more refinement and processing that goes into a food, the less information, if you will, that food can give the body.
Because it's really confusing the body if it has a lot of chemicals and so forth in it.
True. It's also cheating the body nutritionally by giving perhaps what we call empty calories, lots of calories that don't have associated nutrients with them. So we can have pure calories, like you can get a pure teaspoon of olive oil, and it is going to give you some fatty acids, but for the most part, it's really mainly giving you calories.
Okay.
And if you had a teaspoon of white flour, it would be giving you some starch, and it wouldn't give you much else. Very, very trace amounts of anything that's truly a nutrient.
Wow.
Nutrients would be the vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
Primarily.
Okay.
And then those tiny molecules that are yet even undiscovered in whole fresh food.
Right.
So this process, it has had those micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals and little other chemicals that are good cofactor nutrients, taken out. So what's got to do? Your body cannot process and digest and absorb any food without the aid of vitamins and minerals. Where's it got to get them from? Your own physical stores of them in your own tissues.
Yeah. And so a lot of times I'm assuming that when the body's not being nutritionally fed and it's having to go to the reserves, the stores, as you will, then, it's going to start creating a suppression of the immune system, of the circulation system, everything.
The immune system is really fighting and working constantly. It makes it produces so many different kinds of cells from the bone marrow, from the thymus gland, and we walk around in an increasingly toxic world.
Yeah.
Anything that's foreign coming in, and usually it's from breathing and eating, and sometimes touching, is something that's going to put the immune system on alert. And the largest exposure to toxins, if you will, is from eating. And that's why our gut barrier has got to stay very, very intact and functioning. And the gut barrier, believe it or not, is the largest collection of immune system cells in the body.
Really?
Yes.
So when you say gut barrier, we talking the whole intestinal tract? Are we talking about the stomach lining?
The lining of the entire alimentary canal, from the mouth all the way to the anus, all the way. That's and mainly concentrated in the small intestine and the large intestine.
Right.
Are immune cells, and the gut produces every single neurotransmitter that the nervous system produces.
Right.
And so it's got its own little nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system, and it's going to function very similarly. In fact, a lot of people think that the immune system and the nervous system are possibly so intimately linked that they're all part of one larger system.
Right. Yeah. Right. Which would make sense.
Right.
Because everything's linked.
Totally.
We're not gonna affect one or change one by not affecting the others. They're all going to be affected. Right. When you look at a system that let's say that someone wants to work with weight loss. Someone wants to work on boosting the immune system, preventing heart disease. When we look at these different things, are we really looking at having to do a full detox first and slowly build our body back up? I mean, can we really stop our body where it is right now and just nutritionally add things? Is that really going to do it, or do we really need to detox first?
That's a great question, Patti. I think that let's just start here. The more fat tissue, you have on your body, the more capacity you have to store toxins. Okay. Because most toxins get stored in our fat tissue.
Right.
That's what the body is set up to do. Get it out of the way. Try to get rid of it. But if it can't get rid of it, and one of the reasons it can't get rid of it would be because the liver, our major detox organ, but it's not the only one, the lungs and the skin and the kidneys all do that as well. If the liver does not have the reserve of nutrients it takes to help those detoxing enzymes do their job, then it has no choice but to store some of it in the fat tissue.
I see.
So people who are overweight will, by definition, in this day and age, particularly if you're over, say, the age of 20, And if you haven't been living in some pristine bubble in Antarctica all your life.
Right.
And even then you're still going to see whatever. You're going to see some toxins. Then you are toxic. And to do a detox along, use that detox program, and there are so many good ones out there, to help you lose weight. And that always involves drinking lots of water so that you can excrete these toxins better.
Right.
Then that's going to facilitate your weight loss, probably to be a little more rapid, but also to be healthier in the long run, because you are kind of unclogging some systems that have just simply been overloaded.
Right. One of the things that concerns me, and talking about the liver and just how much work it has to do, is, I frequently talk to people who are taking 25 to 40 different supplements every single day. And that just seems to me so problematic for the liver, to be processing so much in terms of supplements or herbal supplements, that just seems like an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always say, you know what, take the top 4 that you need. And I teach people how to do their yes-no response and actually go to each herb and just pick up the bottle and see if the body's indicating a yes or no. Should I take this today? Because from my experience, the body changes so much in terms of what it needs.
That's right.
And when we just get stuck on a regimen of taking, copious amounts of supplements, then what we're really doing is just continuing to jam up our body. We think we're doing good, but we're really not giving our liver much room to process what we're asking it to process and to actually detox.
Well, I think you have to qualify that a little bit in terms of how is a person taking their supplements, what quality of supplements are they taking,
Right.
What are the other the real diet, what is the real diet like? There's nothing like real food to really make a difference.
Right.
But I do believe that supplements are, and I'm sure that the people that you talk to who take a lot of them fully believe that these supplements are doing them more good than harm. And I think in a general sense that absolutely is true.
Right.
But I think that if you, it probably at the worst, it's a waste. And if they're not good quality supplements, it could be that you're getting in some excess additives or excipients that are not good for you.
Right.
But I think if you're really good with the quality, what I tend to do, and I try to get people to do, is in part what you said. Let's really, I have the benefit of being able to test people's urine or blood or whatever at Metametrics, and I can get a better, not a perfect, but a better handle on where their major imbalances are. I get a lot of clues from these tests. However, what I usually find is that people need to take the things that they certainly are the most deficient in, and we can also tell a lot of this information by physical signs and symptoms. We've learned a lot of ways to tell those things. And I always say you must, 2 things, make a distinction between a nutrient and an herb. They are not the same thing.
Right.
Although I love herbs as well. Yeah. And number 2, associate nutrients and supplements that are vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals with your meals, with intake of real food.
Real food.
Always.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are a few supplements like amino acids that need to be taken on an empty stomach, and the enzymes bromelain and papain, for example, need to be taken on an empty stomach. But most dietary supplements that are vitamins and minerals, etc., need to be associated with food because that's where they belong.
Yeah.
That's where they used to be, and that's where our body is designed to extract them from.
Right. Right.
And the digestive process needs to be going most of the time for us to do a good job of absorbing and of digesting and absorbing those nutrients as well.
Right. It seems like, though, in the day of, going to the grocery store and finding, supplements on every single shelf, that people aren't buying as good a quality as they possibly could to really facilitate the system. I want to be able to let folks that are listening to the show right now. Now, they can't contact, correct me if I'm wrong, they can't contact Metametrics directly, but they can contact them through Fernessa.
They can. They actually can contact Metametrics directly, but they need to do it through the website. And that is www.metametrics.com, and I'll spell that for you. It's like meta in metabolic measurement, METAMETRIX, metametrics.com. There is a place on the homepage where patients, quote unquote, can inquire and ask questions, and they will. And it's monitored every single day.
Wow.
We have people that are looking at that all the time. We have great patient liaison people at Metametrics who will forward their questions to the appropriate party.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can help set them up with a holistic alternative or very nutritionally oriented doctor, clinician in their area.
Right. And I would I want to give out Fernessa's website right now because Fernessa, as many of you know, but for those of you who are new listeners, Fernessa, who typically does the show with me, is an MD, and we were teasing last weekend that Gary was going to find that Dr. Kildare music from that old show, and we'd play it when I said Fernessa Hall, MD. But you can contact Fernessa, and she can actually go over with you an overview of medications or supplements that you're taking, nutritional values, really looking at what tests, urine tests, blood tests ought to be run. And she can do it no matter where in the world you are. You can make an appointment with her and fax her the information, and she can kind of give you an overview. So her website is mobile-medicine.net, and that's mobile-medicine.net. And so you can get in touch with Fernessa, and she can help you do the big picture, or, as Terry said, go ahead and contact Metametrics through the website. And, I was watching a show the other day. We're going to go to break here in a minute, but I was watching a show the other day. They had an MD on, and it was on the Discovery Channel, but he actually mentioned Metametrics, and so I thought that was cool.
That is cool.
It was somebody on Discovery, so they obviously were aware of it. So anyways, we're going to go to break, folks. When we come back from break, I'm going to continue this wonderful conversation with my dear friend Terri Pollack, and we're going to be discussing some about autism and the environment, and what are we really doing? How can we help make the environment better just by what we're doing nutritionally? So anyways, we'll go to break. We'll see you on the other side, folks. Hi, folks. Thanks so much for being a part of the show tonight. This is Patti Conklin with my co-host tonight, Terri Pollack, who's a wonderful nutritionist, an incredible musician. We go back many years now, and I know her as a musician. And Fernessa and I always tease each other and tell stories. I won't so much tell a story on you, but I'll tell a story on me. That we every once in a while have nice parties here at my house because I've got the ratio for the dock, fire pit, bathroom all within a good area, and Terri and her bands come and play every once in a while, and I'm typically running up the stairs and going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and the band continues to play. And it was just, the last time it happened, it was just such a treat because you were singing. You had your keyboard and the band, all of their instruments and everything, and you were singing. And I remember just laying in bed going, golly, I love my friends. I love my group. But you have other talents as well. So, Terri Pollack, I just thank you so much for filling in for Fernessa tonight and letting her have an evening off. One of the things that you and I have talked about before is autism and what we can do nutritionally for children who have been diagnosed autistic.
Right.
You know, sometimes when I look at a child with autism, I'm looking at an individual whose the soul will actually be partway out of the body, won't be what I call fully seated.
Wow.
And so what's happening when a soul, for me, that's not fully seated, what's happening is the neurological system, the digestive system, nothing's really connected. You know, all the pieces are there. It's just not connected. It's just not, the puzzle isn't complete. And so in those cases, I work to get the soul back in the body, and we can have some good responses with that. But nutritionally, let's say the soul is fully seated. Nutritionally, what are some of the things? I mean, in your mind, what creates autism, or what do you do with autism? Tell me your thoughts.
Oh, I think, and that's so interesting what you said about the soul not being fully seated. I think that there are many actual causes for autism, and what you mentioned about maybe the digestive system and the nervous system perhaps are not working well and not fully functioning. That is absolutely true in so many of these children. And the typical, maybe I shouldn't say typical, but so many children with autism were fine up until the age of 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
They were made all their yardsticks and they're just doing well. But then something happens and little by little functioning drops off. And, you know, for a long time and even still, it has had to do with perhaps a vaccination with some vaccines that contained a mercury containing preservative.
Right.
And so the whole, you know, toxic effects of mercury would have come into play. And indeed, that can be a true cause in a lot of people, a lot of children with this problem. All of these kids with autism seem to have problems with a very basic system of moving around what we call methyl groups in the body. And then there's just a carbon with 3 hydrogens, and it's called methyl, methyl. Here's a little primer in biochemistry. We have to do a lot in our body with carbon H3 groups. These little molecules they facilitate a lot of biochemical reactions. And one of the things that they do is help move sulfur atoms along and make it possible for a person to produce an antitoxin, antioxidant called glutathione. That is very important in detoxing anything. It's very important. The cell, every cell, not just in humans, but in all of biology, has to produce a lot of glutathione to deal with the oxidative stress that comes just from eating, let alone from running around or having a sickness or, you know, having some sort of ailment. And so glutathione is a magic and important molecule. The issues that these autistic children have with this is they're profound. And we have lots of clues as to how to make that better. One of the things that we find very common in children with autism is that they don't digest their food properly, and they particularly have issues with wheat and dairy products and sometimes other allergens like eggs or citrus fruits or soy. And those foods, once we can determine they are problematic, they have to be taken off of those foods so that the digestive tract can begin to heal, and therefore the immune system begin to be less burdened by those foods not being digested properly.
Well, so are you saying that as children reach that 12 to 18 month time period, that a lot of, you know, they do start slipping in their ability to perform and to continue to thrive? Are you saying that there's a buildup of the glutathione at that point? I mean, how is that? Or are they born with a deficiency?
It's more of a deficiency. They can't make enough glutathione. One of the things, glutathione is made from just 3 amino acids.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple, what we call a tripeptide, 3 amino acids stuck together. But it is a fairly complicated process to get those 3 molecules put together in the right way. And it involves children who can't methylate, like we said earlier, will particularly have a problem with that. They'll have low homocysteine, which is one of the things we see in heart patients have a high amount of. A lot of these kids have low homocysteine. They'll often have fatty acid deficiencies, and they'll just have lots of deficiencies because of the gut inability to digest and process food. And if that would go across the board from fats to carbohydrates to protein. And if you can't get enough protein in, you can't make enzymes for digestion, you can't make glutathione. And so they are really behind the 8 ball. And then what moms often do is a little prematurely, it maybe start introducing like a cereal solid food, when not really knowing that the child can't handle the oats or the rice or the wheat or the corn.
Right. And we're adding that little bit of dry food, at nighttime to get them to sleep better and, have a full belly so they're not crying at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. And there's a genetic component a lot of times that might not be so full-blown, but there can be triggers. There's an old saying that genetics is the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And so you can have an issue that you don't know about until conditions get just right, that the gene that codes for that particular enzyme all of a sudden just can't work, or that enzyme isn't getting produced to get that reaction happening.
Well, that's a beautiful segue into environment.
Oh, it is.
It's a beautiful segue.
It really is.
Talk to me about environment. I mean, I know you have lots of thoughts about what we're eating, what we're doing to the environment, how we're processing. Kind of give me, what does helping the environment mean to you?
Okay. Oh, I grew up on a farm in wooded, beautiful eastern North Carolina, and it was just nature all around me. And we ate healthy food from my grandmother's 2 gardens, and we raised cows and pigs and chickens and goats and horses, and we had a lot of feeding to do of livestock, etc. And then so what I began at an early age, I had a great appreciation for really good food, and I had a great aunt who was kind of a gourmet cook, and she'd introduce all these crazy to us, etc. But one of the big things that I see is that back to this whole idea of convenience food and junk food and fast food and processed food. It should be spelled PHOOD, not FOOD, because it's fake. And it's really not at all, for the most part, what the human body evolved to be able to use. Because we've, like I said, we've taken a lot of the micronutrients out and then replaced it with stuff that might please the taste buds a little bit, with salt or sweet, or maybe some fat, but we are depriving ourselves of the really important micronutrients while we're giving ourselves way too many calories usually. But what's happened, that would not happen, and obesity would not be the problem, and this toxic situation would not be so much a problem internally in people if we were still eating a whole foods diet. And because you cannot really accumulate a lot of toxins or toxins that the body doesn't know how to handle if you keep to a raw, pure, natural foods diet. And it's, people can say, I don't have time to make a good meal every night for dinner. People can say, I don't know how to cook. People can say it's too expensive to buy a lot of vegetables and fruits. And if you look at it one way, it seems that way. But if you truly know and appreciate the fact that our digestive systems are still Paleolithic, they are still Stone Age. We are in no way eating anywhere close to the way we were designed to
eat. And I guess the other thing is when we look at the expense, because that was one of the things running through my mind is the expense of whole foods, of organic whole foods. But you're really looking at it on the front end instead of the back end. I mean, hopefully you're not, if you have a whole foods diet, you're not spending all of your money on health care and at the doctors and at the hospital and so forth for various diseases and congestions, because you're taking better care of yourself on the front end.
That's a huge factor. And then also think about just something as simple as packaging. You go to Kroger or Publix or Whole Foods or wherever, and you buy a bushel, you buy a bunch of ears of corn.
Right.
That's packaged the way nature packaged it.
Right.
You come home, you pull off the outer husk, and maybe you boil it. You've got corn on the cob. And versus, say, having, corn flakes, for example.
Right.
Where you buy a box, and inside the box is this wax bag. You've got all these inks that are on the covering of the box, and then you and all of the energy and mechanical processing that had to happen to create the box of cornflakes. How many ears of corn might have gone into that box of cornflakes? How much gas to fuel the tractor? How much to grow the corn, to irrigate the field, to process the flake, haul it to the all of that, and so when you think about the cost to the resources that have been kind of sucked out of the environment to produce a box of cornflakes versus just what it took to grow an ear of corn that you could buy in the produce stand,
right?
It's a huge differential.
Yeah.
So if you can buy local and eat locally and just learn one new dish a month that you can make maybe on a Monday or a weekend and eat off 3 or 4 meals off of that during that week, you can get salads that are already bagged up for you.
Right.
For God's sake, you don't have to do anything but open the bag and there's your baby spinach. Throw in some walnuts and some little grape tomatoes. Make a little vinaigrette. Throw in maybe a chicken breast that's Springer Mountain Farms because it's organic. Sear that. You could cook enough chicken breast to have that 3 times a week for dinner. A salad with enough protein, and you're not getting much carbs. You're getting a really nutrient dense meal. I mean, that's just one example.
Right.
Of how there's no distinction between the health of the planet and the health of our body.
Well, I think because one of the things, and you just hit on it, is that I think there's a lot of perception out there that eating healthy takes so much work, and what you described was just a 15-minute process. You throw the organic chicken breast out on the grill and grill them up as I'm a baby spinach lover. So, as you're pouring out your baby spinach and adding some walnuts and maybe some fresh tomatoes and so forth, and actually making something that's functional right there in the moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing with kale. Buy some fresh kale, saute it with garlic and olive oil, and then cook up a little can of can now. There's very few things you'll hear me say can.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
And canned beans are awesome. Like canned beans, like canned white beans, any kind of canned beans. I'd rinse them off maybe a little bit, but then they give you a lot of protein and fiber and B vitamins, and they're cheap. And you can have a vegetarian meal, and then have some maybe strawberries and blueberries for dessert.
Right.
Easy. Throw some Parmesan cheese on there. Just it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be expensive. You just have to put a little bit of thought into it and introduce yourself to some foods that maybe you've missed over the years. You haven't eaten in a long time.
I know that
just eat 12 foods and that's it.
Right. I know one of the things that my kids enjoyed as they were growing up. We know me as the non-cook, but one of the things that I would make that they actually loved was a vegetarian lasagna.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of using the noodles, I would just slice up zucchini.
Oh,
and lay the zucchinis and use the zucchinis instead of pasta, which just always seemed really heavy for me. And just use the zucchini instead, and lots of fresh, tomatoes and onions and mushrooms and lots of good cheeses, and and they just always loved that. And I always felt like we were eating something really good.
Well, you were. That's fantastic.
There you go. Okay.
Right.
Well, listen, we're at quarter up, so we're at another break. I know there's a couple of questions out there that people wanted us to answer, and so I know they're listening. So when we come back from the other side of the break, we'll answer those and finish up the show. So we'll be right back, folks, and we'll see you on the other side. Hi, folks. Thank you so much for being a part of this show tonight. Terri, can you believe it? We're down to the last 15 minutes.
It seems like we just got on.
I know. It's just always amazing to me how quickly the time goes, and I just thank you so much for being with me tonight and giving us all of your insight, because you have so much of it, and it's just so wonderful to be able to share it with people, and people can go to the archives and listen to this show for years. So we're putting out all sorts of good information for the future. There was an individual who had written us earlier and wanted to know about pressure in her head. She had been having pressure for the last year, and she's done all sorts of stuff. My first thing was, did you do lymphatic drainage? And she said yes, it didn't work. And you really felt that there was some advice that you would give her from your perspective. So what is that?
Well, you touched on it, I think, Patti, with the lymphatic drainage idea, and that again is possibly doing a full-blown kind of detox program. I do think it's so common. We all have different degrees of toxicity, and it's just going to be an individual thing as to how that manifests. How does that feel inside each of us? And headaches and pressure in the head are one of the fairly common symptoms of toxicity. It could be something like a vascular thing. I mean, I know if she doesn't say that it's throbbing or pulsing, you tend not to think that it has to do with the circulatory system.
Right.
But I do wonder if and sometimes those even that are vascular, a detox program will fix that as well.
Terri, it seems like people aren't doing it as much as years ago. But the whole idea of microbiotics, what do you think about that?
I think it's an extremely cleansing diet. It's obviously it's vegetarian, it's vegan actually.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rice and certain types of other simple vegetarian foods that are involved, certain fruits and certain vegetables, and it's not. I think it's something that people should probably ease into gradually, or if they just completely adopt a macrobiotic diet, they should probably limit it to just if it's not something they're going to be making to a lifestyle, which truly it's a lifestyle.
Right.
If you're not going to go whole hog into the lifestyle, then just use the diet, which I think is perfectly fine, for 2 to 3 weeks as a detoxing regimen.
Right.
So it can work like that.
Lots of my clients throughout the years were using it if they were diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
Then they had a tendency to just jump right into it and really go wholeheartedly. And then, if they went into remissions and so forth, they went back to their before diet. And, that just always seems a little confusing for me because it just seems so extreme.
It's very extreme, and I think if it really does work for people who are going to really make it a lifestyle. I think one of the huge added benefits it has is really lowering blood pressure, and some people can use it just for that. But it really is like anything. If you don't make some changes, improvements, and add good healthy habits, that you are going to stay with for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's really, again, it's just a fad. It's going to be just a passing thing with passing success.
Right. So people are really, let's go back to this woman with the head pressure. People really need to look at a stable detox, essentially, and just really work through the detox. And, I'm assuming by detoxing the liver and detoxing the whole intestinal system is going to, in turn, detox the whole lymphatic system.
It does help that. I think you do need, in most people's cases, you do need some manipulation, physical, like brushing, the upward brushing of the skin to promote the drainage a little bit better. But yes, and also that's one of the reasons why drinking a lot of water is helpful too, to help make sure things are flowing a little bit better.
Flowing a little bit better. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is use their loofah sponge. Get a loofah sponge and do a dry rub on the skin, because that tends to start stimulating the lymphatic systems if you don't have the money to go get lymphatic massage.
Right.
But if you're not feeling well, I think it's a real important thing to do. And of course, I'm a little biased. I love my sauna. I love getting into the infrared sauna and being able to just drink lots of water and kind of stimulate my system that way.
Right.
To kind of
an easy thing to do, and I think it's safe for anybody, is, and I used to do this every Monday. I fasted. Every Monday, and it's like a mini detox, but I did make sure that I had a little bit of very diluted fruit juice with water during the day with a tiny pinch of sea salt, and I would add buffered vitamin C and drink that throughout the day. And it might induce maybe even a little bit of a loose stool.
Yeah.
No problem. That's part of it.
Wow.
And then I would just make it a 24-hour fast from after dinner Sunday evening to dinner on Monday evening.
Okay, so you're looking at diluted fruit juice, a pinch of salt,
sea salt,
buffered vitamin C
powder
that you can, just
powder. Buy it at the health food store. And just not even worry about how much you're getting, but just take a little bit, maybe you can go up to, 10 or 12,000 milligrams a day if you want to. But you should take some vitamin C every day. I think everybody needs at least 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams, if not more, every day. But I think that's just really important. But I think so you could do this fast one day a week with this extra amount, and because it does have the added effect of most people of moving the bowel and really cleaning. And I think colonics, like one colonic a year, is probably an awesome thing for many people to do.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I recommend a lot if they're really facing some health challenges. Get some lymphatic massage and some colonics, and really start pushing those. But I really like the idea of the once a week fast or once a month fast, or whatever you feel you can do, because your body really needs some time out.
Oh my Lord, your intestinal system appreciates the rest. And a lot of people will report that their joint pain is gone for that day. Their sinus stuffiness is gone for that day.
Because as Americans, we really tend to overeat. And, one of the statistics that always blows my mind is that only 19% of Americans have passports. Now, it's changed a little bit for Mexico and Canada if you're going on a cruise or whatever, but in terms of traveling to other countries, only 19% of the American populace actually has passports. And I think until you get out of this country and go to other countries and see the proportions, the portion size, it's amazing the difference.
It is.
It's just
crazy.
It's just crazy. And so, I remember my first trip out of the country was to Japan. And I was 23. And I was just stunned. I'm like, how do they live? how do they survive? There's no food here. And, it took me a little bit to catch on that we are the overeaters. We can have a tendency to have that problem.
Right. Americans used to be called, the people that, what do you call someone who only speaks one language? Americans. And they used to be called the bubble people. Yeah. Because we were just, and now it's worse, although Great Britain has caught up. And for the first time, I think it was in 2001 or 2. Or maybe it was later than that. But sometime in this, since we turned over to 2000, the world population got to where there were as many obese people as people who were starving.
Wow.
It's like 1 billion each.
That's just incredible, isn't it?
It is.
That's just amazing.
It is.
Wow. I hadn't heard that stat, but that's pretty crazy. And we all can just work towards getting a little bit more exercise. If you're in pain, if you're not feeling well, still do some leg exercises, or just move yourself around if you're bedridden, or move your arms. Just take baby steps.
Right.
You don't need to join the gym and start working out 2 hours a day.
Right.
Take the baby steps in life. Slowly start to change how you're eating and what you're eating. Possibly add in a fast, and increase your exercise and cut down on portions a little bit and eat whole foods. And we're down to the last minute.
That's amazing.
I want to remind people you can go to Metametrics, www.metametrics.com. Fernessa is mobile-medicine.net, and I'm PattyConklin.com. And we love everybody who's listening. Thank you so much. And Terri, it's just such a treat, and I'm really looking forward to having you back on the show. And I thank you so much for being a good friend and being just so intelligent and educating all of us.
Oh,
we really
thank you, Patty. I love you, and I look forward to coming on your show again soon, okay?
Great. Well, folks, have a great night, and we will see you next week on Ask Patty Live. Make sure you take an hour out, relax, enjoy, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye now.